What's going on, folks? And welcome to Got Your Back. Rishaug and Strudwick. Jason Strudwick, Chris Sabunia standing by. We have a Stanley Cup champion. How you feeling about that, Oiler fan? 2 years in a row, the Oilers lose to the team that hoists the Stanley Cup. Does it make you feel better about your team? Make you feel more disappointed? Or are you kind of at a point where you don't really care? We'll get some of your feedback to that. So reminder, Got Your Back, brought to you by our great friends over at Mr. Dirk. Love that logo of theirs. Classic. They are a classic men's clothing store. Been around a long, long time. Just an iconic men's clothing store here in Edmonton. You want to upgrade your suits, shirts, tie stock, anything you need, Mr. Dirk has it for you. Great casual wear as well. Really proud to have them as title sponsor here on Got Your Back. Let's check in with the fellas. Zuby out there in Kelowna and Struddy. How we doing, boys? Zuby, we had some technical issues this morning. Your hair was on fire when I first talked to you. How are we feeling now, pal? Your mic's off, bud.
It continues.
No. I think we should just cut him off right there.
Yeah.
Struds, I'm not sure. With the way this is gone, should we let him, should we let him continue?
He's having a tough day. Third try.
No, Chris, come back. There we go. Okay, let's try that again.
Hey, good
Chris,
morning, fellas.
What a technical nightmare this morning. How are we doing now, buds?
Just hunky-dory. Best I've been in one of my top 3 shows of all time. And coffee's starting to kick in, so we're getting there, which also means I may have to excuse myself for 10 or 15
for a few minutes. Yeah, there you go. You know what I noticed? I was thinking about you last night, Zuby, while I was watching Vegas parading around with the cup. Have you ever seen so many goalies holding the Stanley Cup up in one celebration? Like Zuby, the fraternity was strong last night, man.
I joked about that. I messaged my brother. I said, I think they'll be able to have a scrimmage after this too. They're gonna and like how many goalies are going to be in this picture in full gear? Brossoit and Thompson. And Quick, they had 4 for sure. I don't know. Did they have anybody? Did they have a 5th one? They definitely had 4. It was crazy.
It was great.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was way too many. And Raman Leonard wasn't even there. At least I didn't see him. He's a hard guy to miss. So, yeah, they couldn't have a scrimmage. They wouldn't have enough nets. They'd have to borrow nets from somewhere else. Like 4 goalies is, I don't know. Leave the pads off. Put your jersey on to come out. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to be grumpy this morning, but that turned me off. Yeah,
it was a little do you pay attention to the order, Struds,
100%.
when you watch? Yes. So you pay attention to the order because it seemed to me like Vegas only really worried about an order for the first few guys, and then it was just sort of guys were coming back with the thing and sort of looking around like whose turn. There wasn't a set order because Jonathan Quick skated around with that thing before Jack Eichel, which is being noted today. I don't know if it matters that much.
Yeah, no, I love seeing the order, and I remember when the Ducks won it, Scott Needham, my cousin, he got it, and he gave it to his brother, right? Like that was like, Here you go, buddy, you're welcome. I got your Stanley Cup, and so from that time, I've always wondered. I always loved seeing the order, and it was very clear. Obviously, Stone, and they went through the 6 guys that had been there from the beginning. Then after that, it got a little softer, but I think kind of usually it goes through, and Shogger, you're on the ice often for that, but it kind of goes through the hierarchy of the older players down through. I think that's why Quick got it. But also I think that I underestimated maybe the value that Quick had as a former Stanley Cup winner, in that dressing room. And I think that I don't think we can underestimate maybe what that means when he was given that cup at that point in the line.
Zuby, what did you, who did you like seeing? Because there were some great reactions with that thing. The one my wife, Randine, and I were watching, we were killing ourselves laughing, and I didn't pick up who it was, but they had those towels around their neck, and Bunny threw it up in the air, and the towel flipped up, and it was like over his face.
Yeah.
And he's skating around like this, and we're thinking the biggest moment of your life, and there's not going to be a single picture of you actually holding the thing with your face in it. There were some good moments, though.
And that was Logan Thompson. That was one of the goalies for sure.
Oh, was it Thompson?
It was the third or fourth goalie. Now I can't. No, it wasn't Brissois. So I'm pretty sure that was Logan Thompson. I certainly took note of the order, and yeah, I thought it was crazy how Eichel and Aiden. When Aiden Hill finally got it, he was like, no one came and gave it to him. He came out of. If you notice, he kind of came out of the woodwork of the four goalies standing there, like, I guess I'll take it now. I was like, good Lord, man, you earned it, pal. Get out there and get it. Yeah. And I have to say on the Anaheim thing, I'll never forget that after Rob Niedermayer got it, that Chris Pronger got it before Teemu Selanne. And that really that burned my toast, man. Holy cow, was I chapped that Pronger got it before Selanne. I'll never forget that either. Someone posted that in a poll on Twitter. What was the most egregious handoff or something? And I said Pronger got it before Selanne, and that drove me crazy. But last night, it's always great. And actually, I thought Bruce Cassidy's reaction was awesome when he got it.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. You could tell he was so pumped.
Thank goodness they handed to the damn players and not the owner. My goodness, watching that the other night, Struds, that just chaps me. Those guys are out there just grinding and sweating and week after week and all season. I mean, I get the owners are the backbone to the thing and all that, but for goodness sakes, give it to the damn player.
Yeah, I know. My son commented on that too, and I've often wondered why that is, but it seems like hockey's a little bit unique in that way, because I believe in football, do they not also give it to the owner as well?
Yeah, I don't know what they do in baseball, but in football they do too.
Baseball. So it's a little bit of a surprise.
In baseball, someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but it's certainly not a player that gets it first. It's the owner or maybe the manager gets it first. There's something. It's not to a player first. Same thing. People all over Twitter. I can't believe they give it to the player after the NBA, or they give it to the owner after the NBA one was awarded. And is like, do we go over this every year? It's like I see it every year. They're not those other sports. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're going to change. It's not we should if you're primarily a hockey fan, I think you should be proud that hockey is unique in that way rather than complaining because those other ones aren't going to change.
Yeah, I agree with you. Zuby, there's something on fire behind you, so go tend to that.
Yeah.
And Struds and I are going to get to the breakdown. Talk to you soon, pal. We are going to get to some comments from listeners here. The question that we put forward is, how do you feel about the fact that 2 years in a row, Oiler fan, your team was knocked out by the eventual Stanley Cup winner? Does it make it better? Does it make it worse? Do you care? We put that question to you. Zuby will check Twitter there and grab some answers for us. Not live streaming the entire podcast live today. We have, because of those technical issues, we'll just stream the podcast after it's done. But we have put that question out on Twitter and we'll grab some answers. But for now, we're going to get to the breakdown, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. Beautiful maintenance-free decking and fencing. If you know it's time to replace what you have in the backyard and you're thinking, I'm sick and tired of staining and painting and sanding and all those things, definitely recommend you go with maintenance-free product from my brothers at DLR Vinyl. Rob runs the branch in Calgary. Heading out there to see him later today. And Rick runs the branch here in Edmonton. That is DLR Vinyl Products. The way we're going to run this today, Struds, we'll talk about the game last night, talk about what it means for Oiler fans. But in the second segment, we're going to get into line combinations, potential ads for the Oilers, how this looks heading into next season, because with the draft coming up, there's plenty of trade talk out there. So we'll dive into that in our second segment. First and foremost, though, what a dominating performance, exclamation point style performance by Vegas last night. And I thought there was nothing more telling than there being 6 seconds on the clock still, and the entire team is celebrating behind the net. They said, screw it, and just jumped over the boards with like 6-7 seconds left.
Yeah, so let's start with the end then. And I love that. I love that the refs didn't try to stop it. And quite honestly, you could see Florida with about 20 seconds left or so. I think
they just shut her down.
They just skated back to their end. Yeah. Like you know what? There's got to be some common sense here, right? Like,
can you imagine if the ref would have whistled it down and called a too many men penalty? Like imagine if a ref was a hard on like that, and like
you just let it run out. And you see it in the NBA a lot, where there'll be whatever time and the guys will just hold the ball or throw it in the air. Like, there's got to be some common sense. I know there's some sticklers. Oh, the rules. Well, it's 9-3. I don't think it really matters. But just for Vegas's game, what's that?
I said 9-3.
I know, 9-3.
My goodness.
So there, the first period I thought close. Maybe, the score didn't make that, but I thought it was close enough. And then there was a stretch in that second period where Vegas, they didn't come out of their end. They were in Florida's end the whole time. And it was like they said, okay, screw it. We're going to finish this tonight. And they just took it to a level that Florida couldn't answer. And Florida looked so slow. They looked tired. Afterwards we found out how beat up they are, although I'm sure we'll hear some things about Vegas, but Vegas just took it to a level that Florida couldn't get to. And they just kept coming and coming and coming. And Bobrovsky was in there trying to hold it on, but it was just a tidal wave or a tsunami actually of push. And that's what Stanley Cup champions do. I've played against teams that were Stanley Cup champions, and they just find a level that you can't get to. And we saw that not just in this series, but definitely that game last night.
Eichel, Stone, Pietrangelo. I mean, talk about an absolute rock solid core unit for this team to have. Then you add in, Marchessault takes the Conn Smythe. You add in, other Chandler Stevenson. Like, the core of this Vegas team is so flipping good. And guys that truly, like Pietrangelo's been there before and he's proven it. But Eichel and Stone, take their game to a whole new place. And Stone does it through tremendous injury. Like, the core of this team, Struddy, is just built so well, so impressive. And I know it was an expansion draft, so there's not going to be a ton of, like, quote-unquote draft picks on their team. They had one. But this goes to show that it doesn't always have to be the draft and develop model. Like, they pieced this thing together quite brilliantly.
They did. Yeah. They had a great expansion draft where they got a ton of assets, right? And a ton of really good players. So just, there were 6 of them still on that team as of, winning the Stanley Cup last night. They did a really good job of being aggressive, and making moves that worked. At times you're like, oh my God, what are these guys doing? Yeah. But they found a way. Now, getting Pietrangelo as a free agent is huge. They're able to get Alec Martinez through a trade. Those are 2 Stanley Cup champions. They were huge on their back end. How huge? They were arguably their number one pairing. Not arguably, they're probably their number one pairing, although Vegas kind of spreads the minutes out. But that is humongous, having 2 Stanley Cup winners out there as their top pairing. Huge. I'll keep saying it, but as I watched the game, I kept thinking that last night. Then you sprinkle in Barbashev, other guys that won the Stanley Cup. Chandler Stevenson's been through it, although maybe a smaller role with Washington than he did have with Vegas this year. Then you go to make a trade for Eichel. How is that going to work out? He had to get the surgery. They believed in them to do what he wanted. And Jack took his game to another level, more of a team game. Doesn't mean he didn't get his points, but how many flashy moves did we see from Eichel over this playoff? How many?
Wasn't a lot of toe drags, and
And I say this with all due respect. How many of his plays are going to be on Instagram from playoffs? 26 points. I don't think there's many. Look at the pass he made last night. Stretches, gets the puck, drives deep, pushes the D-man back, throws it back to Martinez, shoots it. That's hockey 101. Not Instagram worthy, but coaches love that. And it was very predictable hockey. So, give Jack Eichel credit. Stone just affects the game in so many ways. I don't really know if we need to go through him. But all the guys you mentioned had a huge piece in what this team did. And they were all the same. Shift after shift after shift. It was so predictable that Bruce Cassidy was able to roll 4 lines.
I go back to that video of Mark Stone skating off the ice, his back looking horrible during the Oilers season, right? And if you'd have told me then he's going to basically play every game and then hoist the Stanley Cup, I'd have gone, man, there's a guy with a bad back. Yeah. That looks like it hurts. Excuse me. But he gutted it out, man. That was some real competitive stuff from him. Okay, we're going to get to the Weiss Johnson Twitter mentions in a minute here. Zuby, I sent a tweet earlier asking Oiler fan how they might feel given that back-to-back years, the team that the Oilers lost to went on to win the Stanley Cup. So Zuby, if you want to hop back in and grab that tweet and some mentions. Before we get there, though, we'll remind you, Weiss Johnson's got 45 years in the business. So if you need a new furnace, garage, heater, air conditioner, hot water tank, or any of those things serviced, Weiss Johnson is definitely the place to go. Edmonton's #1 choice for heating, air conditioning, plumbing services. They can do commercial service for you as well. So if you have a business and you want to get some servicing done, call Dennis and the great crew over at Weiss Johnson. Zuby, do you got the jingle?
Weiss Johnson,
he's on the ball. Before we get to the fan, Struds, I want to get to you as a former player. You lose in the playoffs 2 years in a row to the team that goes on and wins the Stanley Cup. Maybe different last year because the series wasn't close, but these Oilers have to be feeling like, oh boy, could have been there for them, considering how close that series was. How would it resonate with you if you were in that position as a player?
Yeah, I want to lose to the champion. I don't want to lose to a loser, right? If you're going to lose, you want to lose to the best. And they've done that twice in a row. Last year, as you mentioned, it wasn't even close. It wasn't a close series. But this year was, pretty close. They could have gone the other way. I see Oilers fans saying that, they were one period away from winning that series. I would disagree with that.
That might be a bit of a stretch.
That's a little bit optimistic. Or the refs screwed us over. Again, I think that's a little bit optimistic, but they were really close. And I think that if they are truly committed to doing what they want, they talked about doing post game or post season. I think there's a chance that they could improve enough where they become that team. But I don't want to lose to a loser. I want to lose to the best.
Yeah. So you feel better about the fact that, the team that takes you out, it would have been different from the feeling of losing to Colorado and the feeling of losing to Vegas though, right? It wasn't the series. Some of the games were close, but the series was what it was. How do you think they process it differently from last year to this year?
Well, when you lose to Colorado, they're just a better team, right? And you lose this one, I think the better team won, right? So that's a little bit different, right? You weren't blasted out of the water by a really good team. The better team won. They were more detailed. We just went over some of the highlights of their series, and how many goals were highlight reel? Like even last night, there were some nice, kind of cross ice passes and one timers, and those are nice. Those are good shots, but just driving the net, just ugly mucking it up goals. There was quite a few of them, and that's the recipe. You see it year after year after year after year, the same thing. So you have to be hard in front of your own end, defending in your own end, and then you got to score some ugly ones at the other end. So if I'm the Oilers, I really think they have to keep shifting their mindset towards that. And it's hard because you can't just say we're going to do this. We're just going to do this. You have to put it in your DNA, and right. I believe that Vegas did that. And like I said, you'd be disappointed because you were so close, but you didn't win. Right? There's a difference between close and winning.
Zuby, you there? You there, buddy? Oh, you're still the fist. Oh, there you are.
I'm here.
You got some mentions that you pulled off of that tweet I sent. How are fans feeling about it? In general, it's kind of the one primary comment we hear. Maybe you guys can speak on this. Is Justin says this year hurts more because we could have pulled the same scheme as Vegas and kept Kane on LTIR, got another big D-man on a rental and brought Kane back for the playoffs. So, of course, lots of talk around that. Vegas's cap situation with Stone on LTIR and coming back late and then being in the playoffs over the cap. So how you guys feel about that? And, that's been an ongoing concern with Kucherov in Tampa as well. Well, when did Evander Kane come back from his injury?
Well, quite a bit early. I think this guy's just saying... Yeah, you would have had to hold Kane out for a couple more months.
Yeah, and I understand that's just a bitter fan making a ridiculous suggestion. You're not going to say to Evander Kane, "Hey, bud, mind staying on LTIR? I know that horrendous injury that you weren't sure if you were going to be able to play again is good now, but you mind staying on LTIR so we can squeeze some more people in and such and such." You wouldn't disrespect a player like that. Zero chance. Doesn't make any sense to me, Struds. And I don't know, man. Like the Kucherov thing was a little different, maybe than Stone. Do you have that much of an issue with the way this went with Vegas and Stone?
Yeah, I think teams should be camp compliant in the playoffs. So for the roster you ice, for the players you ice, it should be camp compliant.
Weren't they last night? I thought I saw somebody tweet in between games that they were just based on the guys in the lineup.
But I'll go back to the Kucherov thing. I mean, that was an absolute joke to come back. At that point, I understand it's they're not breaking the rule, but you can't tell me he couldn't have come back 2 weeks earlier. I will never believe that that's the exact moment, the exact time. It is exactly the first day of playoffs. You can come back. Come on, give me a break. I can't do it. So I think any team should be camp compliant with a roster they ice for that time.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Go back to the mentions here. Biscuits and gravy. That's a good handle. Biscuits and gravy in the picture. I'm going to see if I can show you here. I don't know, can you see that picture? Some fine looking biscuits and gravy coming at us there from Biscuits and Gravy. He says more important things in life, that from an Oilers season ticket holder, right? So he's moved on clearly. He's feeling better about things. Oilers were not close to beating the Avs in 2022, but could have beaten Vegas in 23. Oilers just need a bit more depth at forward and defense, says Kerry L. Kettle. They were close, Struds. They were close. Maybe an uptick in the goaltending. With an uptick, and I'm not trying to blame it on anyone specifically, but if you're the Oilers, you have to be looking at this thinking little bit better goaltending, defend a bit better than you did, and it's right there. Right there.
I think, yeah, they're right there. There's no doubt about it. And I think that's what I talk about. That's not an uptick in skill. That's an uptick in just, being harder and defending harder, and making it hard for the other team to get to your net and all those things. And that's not just the D-man or the goalie. That expresses itself through the forwards as well. They're right there. But we're talking about the getting to the last 100 meters of Everest, right? Yeah. They always, you read people's talk about, say the last 100 meters is the hardest. Well, the Oilers, they can see it. They can see the top of the mountain, but to get there is going to, be incredibly difficult. And I think there's fair to mention a few tweaks to lineup, but everyone's going to tweak their lineup. So let's say you take two players out of their starting lineup, put two new ones in. That still leaves 16 other skaters, or I guess, right. If we're going to talk 18 count the goalies, that need to just take a step, another 5%. That's what you're asking for them, and that's a commitment to it. And I'm not getting off this idea of harder defensive hockey. I just the penalty kill and defensive hockey; those have been my calling points or calling cards throughout the year. They were at the end of the year. They will be all in the year next year. I don't care about how many points guys get. I don't care about the power play. I care about those other points because those are great. Those other things are amazing. They're fun to watch. But we collectively are talking about winning Stanley Cups. Everything has to be great, not just a couple pieces.
And hence, Vinny Desharnais in his offseason, you talked a lot about what you would be working on if you were Vinny Desharnais, because talk about opportunity for a guy like that. If he comes back next year and shows that he's actually, there's some notable improvements, nothing but opportunity for him because he's all about hard defensive play and he is all about the penalty kill. Last comment, Zuby. DJ Bars 1 had a decent one. You got it there? I lost it there. But
I do, yeah. He said, lifelong Red Wings fan who roots for Oilers as my backup Canadian team. Bittersweet when Yzerman came home and y'all got Holland. Knew the Wings would be making moves and Ken would put Oilers fans through the same hell he put us through, never making moves, just managing. I would take it. I would argue with that.
What?
But
never making moves?
I don't know what he did in Detroit, but he made moves here.
Wow. We're not going to make this the Ken Holland appreciation pod here or anything today, but the one thing you can't say about Ken Holland, Struds, is that he hasn't made moves to try and make this team better. Look at the people he's added.
Yeah. I saw that tweet and I was kind of shocked. And now you don't have to like all his moves, but I think that he has made moves. I think you can look at just this year, Ekholm. I think we can look at Kostin. Those two guys, as trades that have worked out very well for the Oilers. And specifically the Kostin one, they probably traded for a player that I don't think is going to play in the NHL. So that's a pretty good move right there. I think Ekholm as well. It was pricey, but he seemed to fit a big hole for him. But now the trick for Holland is he doesn't have a ton of cap space. I think the needs aren't quite as pressing or as clear as when he arrived. I think you're looking at specific areas to work on within a very tight cap framework, and trying to sign Bouchard and trying to sign McLeod, keeping an eye towards the future with Leon and Connor's contracts. Hopefully, you can get some improvement from your big signing last year, Campbell. So he has made moves. You don't have to love them all, but I think it'd be unfair to characterize him as a guy who doesn't make moves.
Well, you look down the lineup here. Hyman, that was Ken Holland. Vander Kane, that was Ken Holland, pretty aggressively getting out there despite the potential criticism that was sitting there I'm pretty sure Fogle was on his watch. You keep going down the list. Bukestad was on his watch. They brought Janmark in. These were players that played for them and played meaningful minutes in the playoffs, right? Cody Ceci, Brett Kulak, Matthias Ekholm. Anyway, the one thing you can't say about Ken Holland is that he sat on his hands and didn't try and make the team better. They didn't get to where they wanted to get to, but they're a better team because of the moves that he has made. Don't at me. Actually, go ahead and at me, and we'll get into it next podcast. All right, that was the breakdown. Time to get into takeaways. You touched on it a little bit there, Struddy. We're going to dig in to the Oiler lineup and what they could potentially be looking to add. And takeaways is brought to you by Sherwood Buick GMC, the big, awesome dealership just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park. Recently bought a truck there. They have streamlined the buying process. It's easy. You go in, sales staff is super friendly. Phil and the staff know how to make it comfortable for you. The financing options are great, and it's a nice, easy process. And they have stock. So if you want to take something for a test drive, they got it there for you. They have lots in stock. Trucks, SUVs, new and used. Sherwood Buick GMC, just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park. So heading to the draft. They're in their meetings right now. I believe they're out in BC, I want to say, having their pro meetings. They have a sort of a set of amateur meetings and then pro meetings, and then they hit the draft already and prepped and good to go. They have not a lot going on at the draft here. They get that late second round pick, a sixth and a seventh. So we'll see if the Oilers are really involved in much action in and around that top part of the draft, Struds. I could even see, could you see them even trading back, picking up a couple of extra picks? Like you take that second and move back for a third and a fourth, or a couple fourths or something like that. More at bats for them.
Yeah, people talk about this being a pretty deep draft, right? So I guess it depends what you think is sitting there at your 2 spot or whatever, right? If there's a guy you really like, I'd rather take a guy I really like rather than try to go for quantity in 3 and 5 or 3 and 4, whatever it is. So that might be a wait and see type model. But you get to the 6th and 7th, and you're getting pretty late. It's unlikely you're going to draft a player out of there, but you got to keep taking shots at it. So yeah, I think this is going to be pretty quiet. But people want to go for it, and this is what you get, right? You trade away, you got to free up some cap space, and you've casting out, some other trades in the past years that have caught up to them now and getting guys. So that's kind of where you're at. So the Oilers' assets as far as this draft are pretty low. And it could be a very, very quiet one. And then you transition to free agency. And again, where does that leave them? It's going to be, unless you're talking about trading a roster player, can you trade Yamamoto for a draft pick? Can you trade Fogle for a draft pick? Those guys, maybe there's a draft pick to be had for them, but I don't think that'd be a high draft pick.
Yeah. It doesn't get enough credit for that Ekholm trade. We talked a little bit about it, but that Ekholm trade was able to happen because the Oilers drafted Reed Schaefer where they did. And That's your scouting staff coming through. And I know people think, scouting staffs get rattled when you start firing picks out the door. But my understanding is everybody wanted Schaefer. Like the conversations the Oilers were having, everybody was calling on Schaefer because of the season he was having and the prospect that he'd, the steps that he had taken and developed into. And that's your scouting staff doing a good job and equipping the organization with assets that they could then turn into meaningful players to help with a team that was in its window. So that second round is interesting. They definitely need, organizations need to dig into the second round and pull out useful players. And I'm interested to see if they did pick there, kind of what level of quality they can get, because those second round picks can make a huge difference.
Oh, they can. If they can get a player out of there, that's absolutely huge. Yeah. They got to try to keep restocking. I know people don't want to hear it, but every pick counts, especially when you only have 3 picks. You got to make it count. You got to make it hit. I'd like to see him dive into some free agents, whether it's junior free agents or college free agents, and now they might not be the most attractive team. If you're a college free agent or a junior free agent, look up like, well, where's my spot? Like, where's the room for me to get in there? But it doesn't mean you got to still go and grind and try to sell and maybe fill some of those missing draft picks with college or junior free agents.
Let's go over in the wake of the Derek Ryan signing yesterday, I want to rip through the Oiler lines real quick here. And, we'll bat this around on the radio all summer long too here. But our perception of where Ryan fits in and where they think Derek Ryan fits in. You okay there, bud?
Yeah, so I was just getting a piece of paper to jot this down.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so I'll just run through them quick, and we can argue, debate. Stop me if you disagree with me at some point. I think the basics of it are Nugent, Hopkins, McDavid, and Hyman as a top line. Makes sense to me. Kane and Draisaitl is the combo on the second line, and then let's put a big old question mark on the right side in the number 2 spot. Now, this is where you and I might get into some disagreement. I think the Oilers are hoping, and what should be for a third line is Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Warren Fogle, who can move over and play right. He's done that before. They got a serious shortage of right wingers in this organization. I think Bukestad is going to be tough to sign. So now you go to the fourth line. Well, Raphael Lavoie needs waivers. I think there's a good chance if he comes in and has a good camp, they're not going to want to lose him. Big guy, finished strong. You could pencil him in. And now it comes down to Derek Ryan as a center or a right winger. I think Ryan has been better overall as a right winger. I like him over there a little bit better than trying to lock down that center spot. And then you've got Costin and Janmark hanging out there that are still to be signed. And if we think Bukestad will get moved on. Do you disagree with any of my combinations here? And where do you have Ryan penciled in?
Yeah, I have him as a winger as well. I think he can moonlight, take some face-offs for sure. I like him on the wing.
So who's your fourth line center?
Well, that's the problem. That's TBD, as they say in the business. But I think that's an area, you can kind of sort out as you go through the season if you can't get it done in free agency. You look at the move they made for Bukestad to bring him in. The problem is you got to have someone do it now. So if you don't solve it, maybe Ryan is your center, right? And then you kind of figure out what you need as you go through the year. You know what? I think I'm a little bit more concerned about what's going up above there, to figure out if Yamamoto is truly not going to be in this mix, how do you find a cheaper solution for that spot? And that's a pretty tricky one. I don't think Fogel's there. Holloway, I don't think starts there. Your third line, I'm fine with that third line. That I love that. It's big and it's fast. And I love that. I just want fast cars running all over the place out there. Then your fourth line, Costin, Lavoie and Ryan, or, do you put Janmark at center? I know it's maybe not ideal at times. You move guys around, like you just figure it out. But I see. So we're close. So we're talking about a right winger and we're talking about a fourth line center. You're getting close there to finishing off this, what would be a pretty good roster.
Greg's brought up Zach Parise on the show yesterday or the day before. And I'd put together a list a little while ago of potentials, and I saw Parise there, and I'm like, And I battled around a little bit, thought about it. A lot of it depends on whether the guy would be willing to come, right? Like we're at a certain stage in his career. What's he looking to do? What did you think when he mentioned that?
I've said Parise for a number of years. I like Parise, but you have to understand, we're not putting Parise in a 20-minute-a-night role.
No.
You're putting him further down the lineup, similar to what we saw Florida do with the Stahl. Well, not both Stahls, I guess, just Eric Stahl, the big centerman, right? So you find a guy who now the thing is, both those guys have won Stanley Cups, Parise and Stahl. I look at this Oilers roster. How many guys have won Stanley Cups on this roster? And
then look at the Vegas roster. And how many guys had.
So how do you go and convince someone that is normally maybe a second or has been a top 6 forward and whose career is kind of, they're getting older, but you say, buddy, you're going to come here. We need you. Like, we need you to be this guy and on this team, and so Parise, I love Parise. I like the way he competes. But, is he going to leave the Islanders? It seems like he and Lou Lamoriello have a real relationship there. But that's the kind of guy you got to figure out. Who is that guy? And you'd have to really pour through the lineups and figure it out and sell him, kind of like Jason Spezza. I've never won a Stanley Cup, but, he got a pretty good deal for that. So, yeah, I love it. I love Parise. I honestly, buddy, I would definitely go for him.
Stastny, 37 years old, 9 goals last season, played under 12 minutes, right? Made $1.5 million.
Similar. Yeah. Similar guy, maybe not the wheels, not the wheels that you're probably looking for. And I say that with all due respect, but I'm not sure that is exactly. But did he win a Stanley Cup? No, he didn't. He didn't win a Stanley Cup. No, maybe he hasn't won a Stanley Cup.
I think Shaggy might have froze here, which is good because we're not live. We're just recording. So.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was wondering what happened. This
I'll
guy,
message him.
The glue guy, bailed out.
Oh, he's calling me.
Hey, you got me?
Shog doggy.
We do. You're not going to want this freeze frame.
No, this picture's not.
You guys got me now? Am I just stuck on a ridiculous freeze frame?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Very
well.
ridiculous.
Zuby, you're probably still recording, right? So
correct.
Should we just say?
Sorry, hang on. Can you say that again, Ryan? Because for some reason my phone flipped back to my phone from Bluetooth. Should we just say which?
Oh. Well, I just feel like this is the day we're having, and we should probably just wrap this pig up. I mean, it just was not meant to be for this to be a smooth show. And I don't know, guys. I just feel like we got to shut her down mercifully.
All right.
You want to do it? You want to include this? I can start the music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we promised people we wouldn't really do much editing here on Got Your Back. So, I mean, let's live with the mistakes, you know. And I think Zuby, everybody knows that you know, today's kind of squarely on you, but that's okay because you've contributed so meaningfully on so many days. So yes, roll the music, and we will wrap it up. Struds, what do you got the rest of the day today, my man?
Well, I just want to point out that I was technically perfect today.
Yeah, you were clean.
As usual, you guys, everyone, you're welcome. To be coming to Strudwick Got Your Back podcast real soon.
Oh boy, Chris! I swear to God, I'm going to pour some budget into this thing, and we'll get you something other than a VHS recorder and whatever other equipment you got going on there. So there's better equipment on the way, my friend.
It's just that we've gone back, recorded over this same tape so many times that you know what happens. Then you start to get the lines and the tracking.
The fuzzy little lines through it. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I can't stand this freeze frame. I don't even know what it is, but I feel like it might not be very flattering. So we'll wrap this piece up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your download. Sorry about the technical mess today, but that shit happens. Big thanks to our sponsors as well, Mr. Dirk, DLR Vinyl Products, Sherwood Buick GMC, and Weiss Johnson as well. Got Your Back with Brun and Rishaug, set to go tomorrow. Struddy, potentially making an appearance on that. Might even have a little announcement. We'll see. We'll see if there's an announcement. But make sure you check that out as well. Have a great rest of your day, folks, and cheers. Freeze frame.